Welcome everyone for today's episode of SaaS From Scratch. I am Vani Kola from Kalari Capital. Really excited that I have two uh, very important people in the SaaS ecosystem. Ritish Reddy, co-founder of Zluri, where Kalari has had a privilege of being an early stage investor, and a friend, advisor, and someone who's a fantastic founder mentor, Sateesh Andra, managing director of Endiya Partners. Sateesh is also the lead investor at Zluri. I'm eager today, though, with both of them, Ritesh and Satish, to really understand, how to navigate and succeed the SaaS journey, especially till you get that validation of go-to-market and MVP and product market fit. So, which I think is where the valley of death happens so often. And I know we have many people in the audience who will benefit from this insight. So, welcome, Ritesh and Satish.
Vani, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, and good to talk to everyone and share perspectives. Of course, learn a lot through this conversation from Ritish as well as you, Vani, and great questions from audience as well.
Yeah, it's a privilege to be part of this journey for us with both of you, Satish and Vani. Looking forward to the conversation.
So, Ritesh, I'm gonna start with you, put you on the spot, or hot seat. But what's new, right? And you do that almost every month with me and Satish. So we'll start with you, okay? Uh,
Yeah.
I know that you've had a tremendously, how should I say, by the book kind of journey so far, right? And that's really a great congratulations, by the way, and great execution on you and co-founders part. But going just to the origin story, which is always interesting, how did you decide to take on this problem? Meaning, what were the factors or metrics that said this is a good problem to chase for you? What was the framework of that thinking? And how did you get started with your co-founders?
Sure, Ravani. So I think between me, Setu, and Chaitanya, all three of us, one of the common parameters, all of us are builders, Vani. So we always wanted to build. And that's what we were doing in our past life as well before Zluri. But I think a lot of it was driven by passion at that point of time. And there are a lot of things that we didn't really consider when we are doing our previous journey, which is, hey, is a market large enough? Can we build a large business? These are certain things that we missed out in our previous journey. And after spending significant amount of time doing that, we started asking question, hey, what is it we can do which is much larger? How can we find larger problems, larger solutions that we can build, which impacts very large community as well. So that was the line of questioning that we always had. And this is not like an overnight solution that we had, but we are thinking about it constantly. And in that process, I think individually, each of us had multiple experiences which said, hey, managing software is a problem. I think Chaitanya was by de facto the CTO, and he was also managing the technology stack in the previous company. And he had no clue on what I was using and what Setu was using. And I had a 3-year-old kid back then. Now she's 6 years old. At 3 years, she was having access subscriptions to 4 to 5 different tools, and I was paying for it. And even when she was not using, I was paying for it. I was like, hey, the new generation that has come in is a subscription-driven generation. So, and it's going to be a subscription-driven economy. How do we do it? And the same with Setu as well. He was dabbling between Singapore and India, and he had 2 phones, and in each of those phones he had Indian subscriptions as well as subscriptions from Singapore. So he said, if as a B2C consumer we have seen the problem, and B2B, Chaitanya is seeing the problem. So fundamentally, there is a problem with managing subscriptions. That was a trigger point for us to say, hey, there is a problem. So the next step for us was to validate how large the problem is. That's when we started digging into this problem and started speaking to different CIOs, IT leaders across the country, and realized depending on who we are speaking with, they were falling in the spectrum between it being a problem to it being a pain. So they were somewhere in between. And this was right in the midst of COVID, and there was rapid SaaS adoption happening. And we said, with this kind of adoption, the problem is only going to compound, and more organizations will start feeling the pain. So we started getting a sense of how large this opportunity is going to be, and that's how our journey began, Vani. And then in the process, we looked at it as a solution, not rather something that we want to really build a solution. And we tried everything out there in the market. Obviously, we found the gaps that were there in the market, and all of that built the conviction that hey, we can build a very large business, and this is something that's going to be there for most of the organization. So that was a genesis, Vani, of the idea behind the SaaS management platform that we have today.
Thank you, Ritesh. And obviously, you successfully raised your Series A and Series B. But going back to the early beginnings, right, Sateesh, so many founders ask this question: why did someone get the investment? And why am I struggling? Why are investors not, listening to me? And so what made you you led this investment? So what did you see in Zluri, what did you see in Ritesh and team to why you sort of lent your name, your money from obviously India, to make that early bet, because there was no product, there were no customers, there was no revenue, and obviously you kindly invited Kalari to join the investment into Zluri. But what did you see?
No, so Vani, I'll give you an answer on the lighter side to begin with, and then go into the real one. So for all the audience and of course the Kalari team as well, on the show, you all listen to Ritish and then you wear investor hats, and then let us know whether you would invest if Ritish were to do or not, right? So that's
Good
one.
point.
Obviously, I mean, narrative and great storytelling early on is very, very important component. The second, point on the lighter side, I do watch few movies. So any movie with three heroes like Three Idiots or Dil Chahta Hai, and then Zindagi Na Milega Dobara, I think all of them were hits. So when
Like Three Musketeers.
absolutely. So when three founders come and pitch to you, so you think that obviously it's going to be a hit. But the lighter piece aside, I think early on when you're making an investment decision, Vani, I know you folks write a lot of first checks in companies. There are three risks we all know. I think there's a team/execution risk. That's one. Two is primarily a product risk, and three is a market risk. And it's very difficult, at a very early stage, to deeply diligence on all the three risks and have answers, right? So, what one ends up doing as an early stage investor is dig deeper into the team and the execution side of the story, and try and understand how much clarity does the team have on the product front and the market front. And again, as investors with certain domain expertise and not being all things to all people, we do our own diligence in terms of how this market will evolve, and obviously, the acceptance of the product. So we all knew that SaaS adoption is going to increase significantly from a couple of $100 billion to 750 billion to a trillion. Predictions are all over the map. And hence, managing that whole SaaS environment was going to become very, very important from an IT perspective, from even a security perspective, from the executive management perspective. So Zluri articulated that vision, and we both co-led that round. Felt that it's a very promising vision. And then the three founders had three complementary skills. I think Ritish knew strategy really well, knew go-to-market, marketing. What he did was amazing in terms of building that brand. Even as a late starter, right, in that particular category, Chaitanya built a very good product very quickly, and Setu knew how to go to customers and kind of get them, to sign up. So I think these were the main drivers.
So, Satish, I know now one aspect of why you are so successful, and that secret I'm gonna try and see how many times it's possible to embrace three founders. That's the key for everyone out there. But Ritesh, from your perspective, right? What was that pitch to early investors? Obviously, Satish has heard it, I have heard it, but I think it may help to just hear a very brief. What did you think you were pitching? What was that first pitch?
Yeah, I think first pitch, Vani, I think what we did was we imagined Zluri as a platform right from day one, Vani. So today, I think maybe we were naive at that point of time. We said we will discover shadow IT or IT within organization, manage it, secure it, and take care of compliance as well. And I think I don't know why Sateesh believed in that pitch at that point of time. 3 years down the line, we are doing exactly the same thing, right? But a lot of people that we spoke early on said, hey, how can you do so many things, right? So, but we always took the platform driven approach right from day one. And we've been consistent in terms of what we want to do. I think that's because we saw the problem in its entirety, Vani. We didn't see that, hey, we just need to bring in uh, discovery into applications, right? So we said that's going to be foundation for everything that's going to be done in IT. You need to have that visibility. So that's what we solved for. That's what we pitched early on. And once you do that, once you solve for that, there are various modules that you can build on top of it. And each module is a problem statement in itself that companies are trying to solve today. And that's the unified approach that we took towards our pitch, Vani. I think, yeah, that's something that we started with and we continue to do so even today.
And Ritesh, while we are on this topic, uh, before I go ask Satish some more questions, what did you look for in your investors? Maybe you can take that from early stage investors to slightly later stage investors. Is it the same criteria or maybe different criteria? I'm not sure. And then how did that discussion and decision, how did you handle it as a group of founders? Because there can be differences sometimes that arise there also. So, in summary, what did you look for from your investors at any stage? And how did you coalesce that and come to consensus internally among the three of you?
Yeah, I think great question, Vani. So I think initially when we started our pitch, Vani, I think this was during the seed, right? That point of time. Honestly, we were looking for a guide or a mentor, right? So that's the kind of a persona that we are looking for. Because while we had all the passion, while we had a great idea, so we need to take it to like we need to take it to the market, right? And there are so many mistakes that we can make early in that journey. And I was speaking to someone very recently. They said, "Hey, once the product market fit is established, after you gain certain revenue, it's easy to guide. But before that, I don't want to do it because it's either zero or one, and it's very difficult to say where you are in terms of this journey and guide people. I think it's a very, very difficult stage, and we wanted someone to really take us through that path, help let us know how that path is going to be, and be that guide mentor. So that's the kind of persona that we looked out for, right? And glad that we've been able to partner with you and Sateesh. I think it has been a phenomenal journey for us working with both of you. And I think we got the right team at that point of time. So post that, I think what we started looking at as we started to get the product market fit, a few things became clear for us. One is, the market is in the US. That's the primary market for us. That became clear. And then we were trending towards security as well. And honestly, globally, Israeli companies are known for security, but not so much from India, right? So we were looking for investors who can bring in that flavor of helping us crack the US GTM, which we were trying to do at that point of time. And then we are also trying to get in that security, players who are known for the security space as well. So those were some of the traits that we are looking for when we are looking for the subsequent rounds. And fortunately, I think we had a chance to partner with Lightspeed, MassMutual. So I think we got all the right names who brought in the right set of credibility and parameters that we are looking for, Vani. So that's how our evolution has been in terms of the asks from investors.
No, thank you, Ritesh. And Sateesh, from your perspective, anything on that topic briefly on how founders should think about different investors at different stages, and along with that, maybe expand on the topic of how they should work with boards, because that also changes as the company grows, and sometimes it goes into unfortunately misaligned conversations, because as the company evolves, investors evolve, boards evolve, and expectations at different stage with boards is also different. And we have seen way too many companies maybe lose their way and sadly lose the opportunity and potential of value creation because of conflicts that generate in that process of not having collective consensus. So, your elaboration on that topic, I think, is very helpful.
Yeah. So I I think both as an entrepreneur and now kind of sitting on the other side of the table, Vani, as founders, you've been a founder, I've been a founder. Ritish is on his journey, and I know there are four phases broadly I see, right, in the life of a company. In the phase one, I think founders will go sell to anybody and everybody. It's just because they want to prove that they're right. It's their idea, their dream, so they want to, just derive that happiness and confidence. And then they get to a phase where they define an ideal customer profile, and then they go sell to a customer, with that ideal customer profile. That's kind of the phase two. They graduate to that level. And phase three is kind of a bit like selling profitably. They start thinking about, selling profitably, margins, all of that. In SaaS, all these ratios are very, very well defined. And then phase four would be a lot more about go to market and distribution and various strategies to scale the company. So I think founders early on need to have that clarity, like what Ritish said. I think capital, absolutely no doubt, is important at right valuation, but more important from success perspective is an investor that founder can work with, right? So not only guidance and mentoring, that's fine, and because all of us promise the same thing, nobody will ever say I'm not going to guide or mentor. I think most important thing is, can they find an investor who's going to empathize with them, right, in that phase of the journey? um, Empathy becomes extremely important. No doubt, I think investors will push the founder saying, look, you got to go figure out, one, two, three things, whether on product front or go to market or sales or pricing. But, can founders or can investors empathize with founders and be part of the journey without really driving the car from the back seat? I think that becomes a very, very important piece. That becomes a trust, part and a comfort part, which defines the relationship. From a board perspective, I guess, again, like depending on which phase of the life cycle of evolution or the journey the company is, you need to really look at your investors plus their skill sets to engage in a discussion where you're going to derive value. I think very clearly each one of us have certain strengths and in areas where we can help. And to me, I think more than formal board meetings, informal discussions, right? Founders derive a lot of value, from the board members and investors. In a formal board meeting, you're reviewing, kind of actual performance versus the plan, the governance, the compliance, and the key issues, and all of that. But in an informal setting, you're brainstorming, you're suggesting, you're obviously chit chatting, in a kind of very different environment. So I think it's very important for the founders to look at each of the investor trends and where the company is in its evolution, and then devise a strategy to kind of get guidance from each of the board members. I also believe very strongly that it's not easy to execute it, but if founders can build a very good advisory board, right, an informal advisory board, a couple of those advisors who can guide them, I think that would also be very, very valuable for the company.
So, Ritesh, how do you prepare and plan to have that same, great relationship with your board, and how do you go about in keeping them in sync with your ideas, with your plans? And I'm sure you've received feedback, and how do you handle challenging feedback?
Yeah, I think one thing which is common across whether you are a founder or investor, Vani, I think what I believe is all of us are trying to create value for the company, right? That's a common piece that we are driving towards. I think when you start looking at from that lens, you stop even you start taking the feedback and reflecting on it, right? So when you don't have start looking at with that lens, then you always maybe you are right or wrong. So that's the perception that we start laying out on whatever investors saying. But when you start looking at from this lens, then it's about reflecting. Hey, what can I do differently? What can how do I take this feedback, and how is it relevant for my organization? And then you have those conversations which will become evolutionary and start generating value for the organization. So as long as you start looking at from that lens, hey, all of us are trying to maximize or generate value from for this company. I think then you start looking at these conversations very differently, Vani. That's the primary approach that we took, right? And a lot of times when we have conversations with the board, so initially when we listen to some of the feedback, hey, why are we getting this feedback? But when you start reflecting, you start realizing, hey, there is a deeper reflection that needs to be had on this one. And that's when we start saying this is the right thing to do. So that's how it has been. And from preparing the board, Vani, I think whenever there are certain assumptions that we have, certain hypotheses that we have, I think it's important to constantly communicate and keep, again, going back to what Sateesh said, there are a lot of informal conversations that needs to happen even before the board meeting, right? That's where you start socializing some of these thoughts, and it also gives time for the board members to reflect on what these pointers are and connect some of those dots that they're seeing and macro that they're seeing, environment that they're seeing outside of the board conversations. I think all those conversations will help shape the thinking process. And the founders are spending day in, day out on this problem statement. But we also need to bring in investors into that fold and communicate most of the critical parts beyond the board meeting. I think that's when the ideas will converge, and that's when we'll be able to add value for the organization. That's how I think about it, Vani, in terms of how the communication needs to happen.
So I'll add a perspective here. I enjoy, of course, being on your board, Ritesh, which is my job, of course, but we don't always enjoy every aspect of our job. And I enjoy being on your board, and both for what the company is doing, but also because of the other people on the board. And I think it's a very, very in sync, aligned board. Not to say everyone doesn't have different viewpoints and at times different disagreements on how something should go about, but that's professional, never personal. It's in the best interest of the company, as you put it. But the three things that I notice that I think works well in your board is, I think from the beginning you proactively send information. Here is how we are doing. This is what has happened. This is what has not happened. This is what we expected to do, but it didn't happen. You don't surprise that in a board meeting. Either we lost the account or got an account, or either way, right? So there is a level of communication that keeps the board and shareholders in sync. And I think that's important, because when they're out of sync is also where some of these conversations tend to get a bit heated maybe. So even from, I think, very early days, and a lot of times founders postpone that. We'll do that when we are a more mature company. But, one of the founders taking that responsibility to collate and share, information on a more frequent and proactive basis, even if it's a, one paragraph email, I think that helps a lot. And I think you guys did that from day one, which I think is great, including, of course, sending all the material and so forth, ahead of time. And second, I've seen anytime there is feedback from the board, sometimes it goes south because everyone gets defensive around the table. And then, of course, there's no way to salvage that conversation. But I think sometimes maybe the feedback is fair, sometimes maybe it's unfair. But taking time to think about it, and then, having next level conversations, not as an impulse or not as an emotion, but on a, just a constructive basis, helps all parties. It's not just the responsibility of the founder or the responsibility of the board member, but I think just allowing for dialogue and discussions where there may be disagreement, right? And planning for that, allowing for that, having right way to process it collectively. And I think you guys have done that very maturely. So I think that also helps the board meetings and board interactions really tremendously. And I also think, lastly, that you have gone out of the way to invest a lot of time in building that relationship on a one-on-one basis. There is a group relationship, there is also a one-on-one relationship. And I think, doing that is not necessary except when the company has trouble or setbacks or whatever, because that's where the familiarity, the interactions really help, right? So and I think investing that time constantly, I think, is important. And those are, I think, the three things that you've been consistent about. It's common sense. It's not anything that is rocket science, but oftentimes those are the things we don't make the time for, right? So I just wanted to share that here. But going back to a question that, a part of a question that Praveen has asked, I'll pose that to both of you. And I know this question keeps coming up many times, but I'd like both of you, from your perspective, to share your, how to get acknowledgement with VCs, especially if you're not from a premier school having pedigree. So I'll, leave that question with both of you. Anyone can take it first. Maybe we hear your perspective first, Ritesh, and then Sateesh is on that question.
Maybe I think my point of view, Vani, I think as you start getting into your professional career, right, and you start building credibility there and creating value in the initial part of your career, I think the value that the degree brings in goes down exponentially, right? And then your professional achievements, professional credibility that you bring, and what you have done at work matters more than a lot of the degrees that are there. I think that's one perspective that I have. And number two is today I see, even irrespective of the kind of pedigree that you have, so there's so much that can be done while you are in college or whatever educational setting that you are in. We are seeing people not even getting into their right from college. They are able to do a lot of projects, a lot of GitHub profiles that we see have tremendous achievements there. I think building that also supersedes some of the degrees that you might carry. No one really cares when you have done so much outside of your degrees. I think those are the two things that I have to say about this one, Vani.
Sateesh?
Yeah. No, I have more a philosophical perspective for something like this. I think the three people on this panel, I don't think none of us have huge pedigree schools. Vani is from Osmania. I'm from JNTU. Maybe Ritish, I don't know where you are from. Which college are you from? I don't remember. so VIT, right? So that just gives you, just one perspective. To me, it's really about in today's time and age. Again, if you were to roll back and say 20 years ago, I complained about access, maybe it was relevant. But today's time and age, I think complaining about access is the last thing I would do, because there's so many mechanisms to connect with people, right? It could be in person, it could be virtual. And I think Ritish alluded to a few of those things. If you're a programmer, what you could do, I think, to get response from any one of us, at least I can speak for myself and Vani as well. I think it's really about how you approach, if you are describing a problem, and what you want to do about it, and be very clear what is it that you expect from us and why you want to meet or talk. I'm pretty sure you'll get the attention. um, I'll give you an example. I go and watch at Gopi Academy, Pulal Gopichand Academy. There are these young kids, 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds who are standing on the sidelines of the badminton court. On the other side, you're seeing, a Sindhu and, all of these guys practicing. They wait very patiently. They wait for that 30 seconds of Gopi's time. And Gopi doesn't disappoint them. I mean, he stops by and he smiles, he greets, and he talks to them. And they get their answers. I think believe in the nature. Nature gives opportunities for everyone. I think do your homework, and I'm pretty sure you can connect with anyone and everyone, as long as you know the purpose and you can communicate that well.
Yeah, one advantage for me is my ignorance, right? I've never realized, and maybe some of it is just a necessity. I've never thought in the context of, am I disadvantaged because I'm a woman? Am I disadvantaged because I didn't go to a pedigreed college? I looked at it differently in the sense that I got to go to college, and I got to go to a college where, coming from a middle class family, I only had to pay 1,000 rupees a year. That's all, right? To do my engineering. I mean, that's 4,000 rupees for 4 years, which obviously is a tremendous gift of, how should I say, many things that many people in this country before I was born decided to offer to the future generation. And that's the only way, I could afford it. Did we lose for a minute there? Maybe.
You're
I
back
don't
now,
know.
Vani.
Hello?
Yeah, we can
You're
hear
Hello?
back
you.
now, Vani.
Yeah. So I think sometimes if we frame the question, I always felt what a tremendous privilege I had, right? Imagine whatever college, doesn't matter the name. I went to Usmania, of course. My point is that 4,000 rupees, right? So for getting your engineering degree. And so I always looked at it as I'm privileged, right? Not that I'm disadvantaged. And even today, I don't feel that I'm not privileged. So sometimes our mindset might help us, um, and like Ritesh said and Sateesh said, at the end of the day, you will bring a certain energy to yourself that's beyond just degrees and names. So, but you have to believe in yourself first and foremost before anybody else can believe in you. Um, Now, going back to SaaS companies, all companies, almost 80-90% of them at the beginning struggle with focusing on India SaaS companies. We are talking about here, of course, struggle between how much to focus on India market, how much to focus on US market or, international markets, when to make that switch, and, how to go about it, right? Satish, start with you, your general guidance, and then Ritesh, maybe you can talk about specifically how you went about it.
Yeah. So I think, Vani, there's no answer that kind of is one size fits all, right? I think it depends on um, the type of application. Is it a horizontal SaaS app, or is it a vertical app, and who your customer is? Is it mid market? Is it enterprise? Who the buyer is? Is it IT organization or line of business or finance? So I think you need to look at all of those, the segment, the kind of the buyer, the ticket size, even of the application, that you're offering. Is it $30,000 a year type of a subscription, or is it $100,000 a year type of subscription? So I think one thing for sure, uh, we all know, right? Early on, I mean, there's no debate about, the largest market on planet Earth is US. And the next, very large opportunity is Europe, English-speaking nations of Europe. And then you go to Australia maybe, and then, a few other places in Southeast Asia, and then you think about India. But I think post-pandemic, if you really look at, things have changed, and also with the geopolitical situation, things have changed. Lot of enterprises in this part of the world are going to adopt technology. So hence, they will start spending money on technology. If you really look at one point of time, even global organizations in India were mostly support centers. They have now all transformed into what you call as global capability centers, GCCs. The offshore entities are now called GCCs, and there's a reason, because it's not anymore a support center; they are transformation centers. So they are able to make certain decisions here. They do have budgets here. It's not that always these decisions are deferred to headquarters in New York or California or London. So I think look at all of this, then decide whether you want to pursue India first, or you want to pursue US, or other geographies. We have examples, all kinds of examples within our own portfolio. I mean, someone like Darwinbox, 95% of the revenue is derived from Asia. They only have like 5% of the revenue coming from North America. Whereas someone like Zluri could be, 40, 50, 60% coming from North America, and another 20% from Europe. So I think you need to very carefully analyze where you want to go fight the battle. And then also, it's very important to equip yourself. What does it take? Why are you credible in US? What I've seen very often entrepreneurs do, founders or entrepreneurs, they commit a mistake. They run few digital marketing campaigns, and they get some leads. They end up closing few deals, and they think that, okay, now I can go dominate the market. Why? Because, they have budgets, they make decisions very quickly, and they pay more. I think all of these are true, but then question becomes, why you? How are you credible in US? Can you compete with a Silicon Valley or a Israeli, SaaS company? And will the local talent come and work for you? Will analysts recognize you? There are many other things, for you to really build reasonable size business. It's not just to get a good start, but a warm start. How do you scale your business? So you need to think about all this before you start investing seriously in a particular market.
Ritesh?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, my point of view, Vani, I think aligned with Satish. I think it varies from product to product. But I think in general, the principle that I have always believed in is be where the demand is. Uh, because when you are doing that 0 to 1 journey, right, it's important for you to get to the battle, right? So you need to see whether there are opportunities that you can go and fight and don't win, right? Even if you're not winning, you need to know whether whatever you have built, someone need to validate it. And validating in the sense they looking at the product and giving you feedback. Hey, what is it you need to do? What is it is lacking, or what is it you are where are you better than others? So you need to have an opportunity to fight the battle, right? So, and not every product will have the same level of opportunity in each of those markets. For example, when we started, we just looked for, hey, are people searching? What are the markets that people are searching for the keyword SaaS management? And we realized there are certain markets there is no traffic. And if we hadn't looked at the data in terms of where the demand is, we would have gone to wrong markets, and we have spent a lot of time doing it without finding any traction, right? It's very important. How do you get those initial wins? How do you get those initial people who will believe in the product, who will validate the product, who will give feedback on the product? It's not just the dollar check that they're signing, but there is a lot of things that happen even before you win the first deal. So where can you get those opportunities to have those conversations is very important. So that's where being in a place where the demand is going to important. And again, that varies from product to product. For something like a CRM system, I know every geography there's a market, but for something like what we have built 3 years back, there was no demand in certain markets, and we were glad that we didn't spend time there, and we spent time where there is demand, so which gave us an opportunity to accelerate some part of our zero to one journey as well. So that's the operating principle that I believe in. One, be where the demand is, and that's what I would advise people who are trying to do that journey.
So, on a different note, right, Ritesh, we have so far been talking about a mutual admiration club and all that has been done well, which you've done a lot more things right than not. But often, hence, it appears like everything is easy, you know. And so, one question is, what do you think you haven't done as well as you could have? Or, and when I say you, I don't mean you, Ritesh, right? I mean Zluri as a company. What are the things that were setbacks or key learnings in the last few years of journey?
Yeah, I think when we started our journey, Vani, I think we were in a different market conditions, right? The macro was very, very different. And I think at that point of time, I think we went into different segments initially, SMB, mid-market, enterprise. I think it took us some time to figure out where our product market fit is. Initially, as I think early on in the conversation, Sateesh mentioned that when you start, you go and sell to anyone and everyone, right? That's how even we started our journey. I think it took us some time to figure out where do we fit in, where do we add value as a product to which customer segment. I think that iteration, again, there was one more dimension to it, which market, which we spoke earlier. Is it India, US, UK, Europe? Which part of it is the right market to go after? Figuring out that combination, and the larger complexity even for us is we are multi-product company as well. So putting this piece of puzzle together and choosing that path, because we can't execute on all these fronts at the same point of time with the resources that we have and the stage that we are in. So we need to choose that path. I think choosing that path, I think could have been done earlier, Vani. That's one piece that I would, if I had to go back in time, we would have made some of those decisions early on, but it was a learning process. The second part, Vani, I think in hindsight, what we realized is about the orbit shifts, right? So as you move from 0 to 1 and 1 to 5, 5 to 10, the kind of capabilities that people would require are very, very different. Initial part of the journey, you have a lot of people, you bring them in for passion, but as you start scaling, the passion doesn't helps you to an extent, but you should have seen that journey before, or you need someone to take you through that journey. Otherwise, you are going to make mistakes, and it's only going to take you a lot more time to cover that ground. So, getting that right set of people at right point of time is going to be important. At the same time, how do you manage the team that you have who are working out of passion? How do you upskill them? How do you get them tag them with the right set of people who have seen that journey? I think we could have done a better job in terms of taking some of those calls, bringing in some of these leaders little early. So those are a couple of things that, in hindsight, if I have to do something differently, those are things that maybe we could have done a little better. Is how I'm thinking about it, Tawani. And even the third one, maybe I'll just add, is the ICP part of it, right? So mid market is one thing. Within that, which segment of customers? How do you define that? What is the size of the organization that you go after? Within that, what is ICP that you go after? Getting that very, very crystal clear in the early part of the journey is very important. Again, I think we took some time to crystallize on that. So that's the third one.
So, Satish, in general, is there such a thing as most common mistakes that you think early stage companies make and should be watchful to avoid?
Yeah, no, I think there are two, three things, Vani, I worry about, and it's not that I have answers for all of those. I think eventually to create success, right, to build a business, a valuable business in an enterprise or SaaS space, uh, you definitely need to be one of the top players in the category. Right? So you have to be among the top three within the category. The question is, what does it take to be among the top three in your category? Uh, Second piece is, I think, especially Indian startups going global. Ritish talked about this, the talent assimilation. You bring talent and then you have to assimilate and retain that talent and make sure that that talent delivers, right, as per your expectations. Um, and there, certainly in the areas of, if you look at product management, product marketing, and to some extent in account management, we need skill sets that we don't have right within the country. If you look at a consumer sector, people can create a product or service very quickly in Indian context because you're catering to Indian customers and you're close to the Indian customer and you know the pulse. Whereas if you're building a product for enterprise in US and you're sitting in India, unless you've had deep domain expertise, lived there, worked there, and you've met lots of customers, it's not easy to evolve your product, right, and fight and win that battle. So you need to bring necessary product expertise and to some extent sales and marketing expertise. So that talent assimilation is a very, very important component and how companies handle that. And the third thing, I think I discussed this with Ritish, and I would love your perspective actually on this as well. I've really not understood why SaaS companies need 25 times more capital than Oracle and Siebel and Microsoft in today's time to build successful business, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there's cloud. So obviously your costs have come down because of cloud. There's open source, so your time to market velocity is way better. Your wage bills have not gone up 20 times. Your wage bills might have gone up 3 times. So why do companies need to burn? Why are they not capital efficient? And why are they raising so much capital to really build a very viable business? So I think take the money, when it's coming your way, an attractive valuation. I'm not obviously going to detest that or tell the entrepreneur not to exercise that particular option, but conserve your cash, right, and build a very efficient business. It's extremely important to do that. To me, I think most of the time the mistakes I see SaaS entrepreneurs making is that they read too many playbooks. I think it's good to read playbooks, but evolve your own playbook. To me, that's the most important piece. Just don't listen to only someone else's experience and you think that you can walk their, path. It's not going to work. You need to figure out what you want and then craft your own journey. If there's a major overlap, then that's fantastic. You're lucky because someone else has set a reference path for you, right? If it's not there, you figure out your own, obviously path to get there.
Yeah, sometimes, like I said earlier, Sateesh, ignorance is a gift
Bliss.
also. At
Yeah.
sometimes I didn't have a playbook, so don't read too many playbooks, but focus on creating your own playbook. I agree. You can get very confused when you read too many playbooks. More important than confused, you feel like somehow what happened to that person isn't happening to me, and it's just a waste of time and energy. Of course, in uh, 25 years ago, when I did my first company, I raised all of $7 million over 3 rounds, really. And I didn't know anyone who had ever raised, even if they were large, successful companies, more than 20 million before they sort of got to IPO. Of course, the IPOs were somewhere
Smaller.
between 400 million to a billion. Maybe a 2 billion IPO was considered extremely rare, right? So, but I do think one thing that has changed now is the competitive forces, right? And in some ways, it's like saying that my parents' time they didn't have like a JEE training or coaching classes or whatever, but all kids go through that today, right? So some of it is environment driven, why we raise so much capital. But I think what's important for the founder to figure out is what is the relationship of capital to my personal and hence the vision and dream and the company's long term success. I think there is a disconnect with lack of just focus on this topic to say the more capital you raise, there is automatically more dilution, but also more pressure on you to succeed. So if you raise capital at 500 million, in 2 years, you have to be a 2 billion company. And if you don't, right, that's how the core principles of market and capital work. And you can't swim upstream against that. And I think it's a very simple logic, but time and again it escapes, and you raise a lot of capital and you can't then live up to the expectation of that capital, right? And perhaps if you took a little longer and you grew at a different pace and maybe raised a little less capital, and don't worry about whether your name shows up on the headline of some media article today, tomorrow, or whatever, but you build a company to last, right? I think, and that is the legacy you want to build versus the short term thrill of, oh, I raised so much capital. So I think it's less about external considerations. I would encourage founders to think about, but there is certain amount of capital you do need, so you can sort of wait around and miss the market fully also. So you have to find that fine balance between capital and expectations and winning. It's a triangle, and you have to find that optimal Venn diagram. Satish, on sort of moving into closing our conversation and discussion here, what do you see, just looking ahead from opportunity for India SaaS companies to either build for India or build for the world? How excited are you about that? And what do you see when you look ahead?
So the honest answer is I'm very confused, myself. The reason is I think what is AI going to do to SaaS? If you really look at while I can say, oh, AI is a great opportunity, and we can all leverage AI and build great companies for the globe. I think the question then becomes, what kind of companies, right? And are they going to be, no doubt, we all know business process transformation. I mean, just look at India macro or Southeast Asia or, the Middle East macro. I think these three regions, GDP would be closer to 11-12 trillion dollars in the next few years, on just absolute basis. I'm not even talking about purchase power parity. If you were to put a PPP layer, you're talking about as large as an American economy, right? So definitely consumption of technology is going to increase. So there's a great opportunity. There is data deluge. We all know about data deluge. Privacy compliance is a huge issue. We all know about that, pretty much, right? So I think, yes, can you come up with certain vertical apps? Can you leverage AI to go build, these for this region? Yes, there is an opportunity. The question is going to be more about, I don't think uh, you will have, I would say, an environment where you would be allowed to do too many experiments. You got to get it right, maybe the second time. Earlier, if you look at last 7-8 years, I think, or maybe especially last 4 years, there's plenty of cheap money available, and that's not the case today. I mean, if you really look at it, uh, the diligence is kind of, the bar is very high. The metrics you need to achieve to be able to receive a term sheet, whether it's for Series A or Series B or Series C, I think people take much longer. They want to see a lot more track record and performance and all of that. I don't mean to look at this glass as half empty or kind of throw water on enthusiasm of people. I think it's very, very, very important to do your diligence, before you embark on, the path, right? But from an opportunity area perspective, I kind of see, if you look at India again, we have very, very strong developer community, right? There's so much of AI application even within developer community. It's not about code generation and productivity, but if you really look at, test cases and test environments, right? Simple example. I talked about vertical apps. I talked about, data. I talked about privacy and compliance. All these areas are definitely ripe for obviously disruption. And if you were to take a very fresh approach, then that's going to will not have any tech debt, and hence you would move much faster than players out there. So do your diligence, be aware of the environment, and then go out there, fight, and win the battle. I'll put it out maybe in few months once I have more clarity. But I myself, I'm reflecting on, what is that opportunity, for SaaS with fusion of AI in the next several years.
I think Sateesh, you and I have had very similar life experiences in terms of starting our companies at around the same time, moving to India, investing in India at around the same time. One thing we have seen is, different kinds of tech disruption in our career. And sometimes it feels like, where is this headed? But what it does is it always opens up a different vista of opportunities. While I also don't know what the future holds, but one thing I feel with a enthusiasm and optimism is that, there is a unleashing of a very different kind of productivity and opportunity. Whether and who will be the new heirs to that, right? If you think about these disruptions, usually only very small portion of the incumbents actually succeed when there is tremendous disruption and somebody new emerges. Now, whether I will be able to recognize that and find those founders and investors to be proven, but will it happen? And somebody will invest in them, that's for sure, right? So, Ritesh, asking you, as you look ahead, maybe specific from Zluri lens or maybe specific to SaaS or otherwise, what do you think are, something that we should all consider in looking ahead?
Yeah, I think I'm one of the belief that I hold, Vani, is that there's a lot of this disruption keeps happening around us. But I think there are certain things which are going to be constant, right? And I think if we are able to figure out what that constant is going to be and leverage some of these technologies that we are talking about as part of solving that constant, I think we context of Zluri, right? If you look at it, so businesses are going to be powered by technology forever, right? And I don't think that that's going to change. And when technology is powering businesses, there are certain segregations that needs to happen in terms of who's has access to what kinds of technology, how they are leveraging, and there is that whole compliance around it in terms of verifying, validating, all of that stuff. So those work streams are going to be there. So now today we are using SaaS, today we are using workflows. With AI coming in, it's going to be conversational. It's going to be then there are no structured, unstructured data that are there. You can query and then get information from there. It's about how do you architect your systems for the constant that is going to be there, and that's how I think that's how my thinking process is, and that's how I'm trying to shape our thinking process as well, Vani.
So, Sateesh, I'll leave the thank you for that, Ritesh. And, this has been a great conversation. We are going to wrap this up now, but with one last question to you, Sateesh. I know that you have always been a deeply connected person. I mean, from an inner connect within yourself. And, early stage founders' journey is extremely stressful. And my question to you is, what do you think is the role of uh, maybe not so much the role. How do you think early stage founders can reduce that tremendous personal stress? Because there is a long term impact of that on your health, on your family, on your obviously overall well being. So I know you have thought about this topic a lot. So I'd like to close with your answer on that.
Yeah, no, I think it's very, very, very important topic. I think, like you said, you're alone in that journey. You might have founders, no doubt. I think you're lucky if you have a couple of founders that go along the journey, with you, and you're all very transparent. I think that reduces the burden, no doubt. And if they have skills that are very critical for success of the company and that you don't have, and then you're even more luckier. But very important, I think, whether it is really, how do you get rid of those emotions, or how do you address those emotions? I wouldn't call it get rid of the emotions, but address those emotions. Certainly, to me, I think meditations play a very, very important role. Sport is an amazing way, to kind of go express and, let out. I think, to me, reading great books, of course, is another path. Uh, I think you need to figure out, music has the same effect for people. I look at all of these as various forms of meditation. I think, right, because it's your body, mind, and breath together, and your prana flows at that point of time. So you need to pick and choose what makes sense for you, and what allows you, to obviously be in touch with your inner self. I think there's enough content out there, and there are enough. Gurus out there, and enough avenues out there. It's just question of choosing what is right, and then uh, being detached. And when I say that, not being less passionate, I think being detached makes you a lot more passionate. You're not commit to the process. I think outcomes will happen automatically. Don't be too feverish about the outcomes. I think commitment to the process and having that Olympian mindset. If you really look at, every day you wake up and you do the same thing, and then you go to do this for decades, and then that, okay, you're one of the top 5 or top 10, and sometimes, in a split second you lose everything in an Olympic race or whatever, right, or in a tournament. So but having that mindset, to enjoy the journey, enjoy the company you keep, it's very easier said than done, but I believe is very, very, very important, uh, is what I feel.
Now that's food for thought for all of us, not just the early stage founders. And thank you so much, Sateesh and Ritish, for joining. And to the audience, this is, I think, our last session for the year. So I wish all of you a great holidays and tremendous new year for next year. And we'll see you back next year. Thank you, Sateesh and Ritish.
Thank you, Vani,
Thank you,
and
Vani.
thanks to entire Kalari team, and wishing everyone a happy new year. Thank you.